I recently purchased the Castlevania Requiem collection, which includes Symphony of the Night and the remarkable Rondo of Blood. If you like the series, especially the earlier titles, but never played this one, then you have some catching up to do, because Rondo of Blood is one of the best. It is pretty hard though. But I mainly bought the collection because I wanted to capture high definition footage for this video. However, when I started Symphony of the Night and climbed the famous stairs to Dracula's chamber, I was in for a surprise.
Dracula, die now and leave this world. You'll never belong here.
Oh, but this world invited me. Your own kind called me forth with praise and tribute.
What is this? Why does it sound so normal? Well, because it uses the voice acting that was recorded for the PSP version of Symphony of the Night, which was released in 2007. I don't understand why the people responsible saw the need to change the original voices and even to rewrite the lines. But they did, and unfortunately this is the only version you can hear on the Requiem collection. Which means that for this video I'll be switching back to the PS1. Because we absolutely need to talk about the original dialogue at the start of the game. Have you ever really listened to what they are saying? One of the skills I possess that I'm really proud of is that I can recite the whole dialogue between Richter and Dracula by heart. This is due to I Wanna Be the Guy, in my opinion the best rendition of this script.
Tribute! You steal men's souls and make them your slaves!
When I was playing I Wanna Be the Guy to shoot footage for my video about Horror 6, I heard this dialogue over and over again, and that got me thinking. I began listening closely to what they were actually saying, and I realized that there was much more to their talk than the colorful words and the strong emotions.
What is a man?
And this is how the idea for this video was born. And now, more than a year later, I'll finally present my analysis. But before we dive into that, let us quickly summarize the circumstances under which these characters meet. As heir to the Belmont clan, Richter is the one destined to defeat Dracula, as his family does every 100 years when the vampire count mysteriously reappears. This is the basic plot of Rondo of Blood, which takes place in 1792. However, Richter's quest does have a personal component, because Dracula's minions kidnapped his girlfriend Annette. Over the course of the game he can rescue her, as well as a couple of other hostages. Despite the grim circumstances, Richter displays a hot-headed and sometimes even carefree behavior during his quest. He acts like a classic youthful hero. He is full of energy, kind towards the hostages, and seeks to bring justice to the evils of this world. And at the end of Rondo of Blood, which is also the beginning of Symphony of the Night, he faces the big bad evil overlord, Dracula himself. It is noteworthy that Rondo of Blood features dialogue not shown in Symphony of the Night. After their fight, they have a short, almost philosophical debate about desire and power. It does fit the overarching themes of the dialogue in Symphony of the Night. The games do not directly contradict themselves, but Symphony takes their discourse into a different direction. So how would a man like Richter Belmont, the youthful hero, open a conversation with the infamous vampire lord? With an iconic one-liner, of course.
Die, monster! You don't belong in this world!
He makes his intention crystal clear. Richter's not here to talk, he just wants to get a fight started and be done with his adventure. Furthermore, by calling Dracula a monster, he reveals that he doesn't even acknowledge him as a worthy conversation partner. You don't talk to monsters, you kill them. If Richter would be playing video games, he would probably skip most dialogues. But his opponent doesn't grant him his wish and instead replies,
It was not by my hand that I'm once again given flesh. I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
I love the way he pronounces humans.
Humans?
But theatrics aside, this is a big one. At the time of the release of the game in 1997, as well as at the time of this event in the Castlevania universe in 1792, this was a bombshell of an information. Up until this point, the lore of the series was quite simple and you could read up on it in the intro of Super Castlevania 4. Every 100 years, the forces of good weakened and Dracula gained power until he rose from his grave and unleashed his forces onto the world. It is described like a natural disaster that happens periodically. But right here, Dracula claims something different. This time it was not by his hand, but humans brought him back. This is quite a game changer, because if mere humans could actually resurrect Dracula, then the traditional 100-year cycle could be broken. If this were true, then the Belmont family could no longer rely on their usual strategy, because what use would be in defeating the vampire if a human could immediately bring him back to life? A player in 1997 would have a lot of questions at this point, and Richter Belmont should have even more. Questions like, who brought you back? How did they do it? Or maybe even why? Answers to that could prove useful in making sure Dracula would be defeated once and for all. Try to imagine the situation. You are facing off with an evil overlord and he grants you a look behind the curtain by telling you about the secret of his immortality. So let's see how Richter handles this unexpected windfall of knowledge.
Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves.
He flat out dismisses Dracula's words. It's hard to tell if he cannot fathom the possibility of what he heard, or if he's still trying to skip the dialogue and get to the fight. The only thing he contributes is some weak attempt at trash talk. Which, I mean, he's talking to Dracula. You steal men's souls and make them your slaves? So what about it? Next you're telling him he drinks blood and turns into a bat? No, so far Richter didn't really make an impact in this conversation. And Dracula uses this opportunity to dunk on him with a clever retort.
Perhaps the same could be said of all religions.
If you specifically look at Richter, a man from Europe of the late 18th century, then it's easy to see which religion he is referring to. With his words about stealing souls and making slaves, Richter tried to prove that he had the moral high ground. But with this one sentence, Dracula turns the tables and questions the religious beliefs that Richter is following. And from a cynical perspective, you can see some truth in the vampire's words. It's easy to imagine a religion with greedy and power-hungry leaders who lie to their followers, taint their souls with false beliefs and exploit them. Or make them do horrible things, like killing non-believers. And if you look at history and all the murder and torture that was committed in the name of Inquisition, or the wars that were fought under the excuse of converting heathens, then you could call that stealing the soul of humanity. And interestingly, these words are not just an attack on Richter's beliefs, they also offer us another puzzle piece to the secret of his revival. Dracula isn't denying that he is guilty of similar crimes. His words clearly imply that Richter's accusation is right, but that he is just doing what all religions do. And that fits well to his earlier words, that humans wish to pay him tribute. In other words, there are people in this world who worship Dracula like a god, who believe in his powers like others do in their religion. And that's what's actually happening in Symphony of the Night. Dracula was in fact resurrected by a human, the Dark Priest Shaft, a figure Richter met on his journey in Rondo of Blood. And as a priest, Shaft is a religious figure who spreads the belief that the almighty Count Dracula will purify the world with his fires of chaos. Dracula did not return thanks to his own powers, but because of this religion. And if Richter did pay attention here, then he would have known what he had to do. Stop Shaft and his followers so they can never resurrect Dracula again. That's the long-term solution here. So how does Richter react to all of this?
Your words are as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior such as you.
No, his words aren't empty, you're just too ignorant to get it. It's impressive how wrong Richter is, because from here on out, humans worshipping Dracula will be a common theme in the series. Time and time again it will be fanatic individuals, people of religion that seek to revive the vampire lords, and this will continue long after the Belmont clan has vanished into obscurity. The true root cause of these incidents is not Dracula himself, but the humans that long for his evil powers. Defeating Dracula will not end the cycle of terror, it will just buy some time. And at this point, the Count knows that that's all Richter will achieve. He offered his opponent some tidbits of information and cleverly tested his understanding of the situation. Richter's responses gave him a clear answer. The vampire hunter didn't have any clue at all. The Belmonts would not hunt down Shaft or any future humans who would be willing to bring Dracula back. He will return over and over again. He has won.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you!
I love it when he throws away the glass. Dracula has so much style. Asking a rhetorical question followed by a dramatic pause and then... Brilliant. I need to do that more often. But back to the topic. At last he fulfills Richter's wish and the fight begins. Dracula assumes that he will be defeated. Richter is probably the most powerful of all of the Belmonts. Against him and the legendary whip he's wielding, Dracula hardly stands a chance. But it doesn't matter. He knows that Shaft will resurrect him soon, and this conversation showed him how he could deal with Richter in the future. And thus, Symphony of the Night begins. In 1796, 4 years later, Castlevania, Dracula's cursed castle, returns once more. What a surprise! Wasn't it supposed to come back in 100 years? What's going on? If only somebody could give me an explanation. Richter is part of this, of course. He is once again in Castlevania. However, this time he plays a very different role. He defends the castle from its intruders and even claims that he wants to resurrect Dracula because he believes that this is the only thing that can give his life purpose. He sounds eerily similar to those religious fanatics. So in the end, Richter is just another miserable little pile of secrets. If only he had listened to what Dracula was saying in the beginning and all of this could have been prevented. But on the other hand, then we wouldn't have Symphony of the Night, and that game is great. So, thanks, I guess. Of course, that's not the whole story. There's more in the game to explain Richter's actions. But my takeaway message is that his role during Symphony of the Night was foreshadowed here in the beginning, and that his unwillingness to listen and understand what Dracula had to say was his first mistake on his path to ruin. And as a final note, while the modern dialogue of the PSP did alter the lines, it still carries the same core messages, so my analysis fits to that version as well. And that brings this video to a close. I didn't even talk about that one big twist that Symphony of the Night is known for, the one that completely turns your perspective on the game around. You know what I'm talking about, right? Thank you for watching. This dialogue is mostly known for its campy writing and the voice acting, but I've never seen someone make a deep dive into the actual conversation. I hope this was an interesting little short story. See you next time.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
But you must always remember that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
I understand.